This is the Green Room on Radio Kansas. I'm your host, Katelyn Matson-Levy. And today we have with us conductor Yaniv Segal, who is guest conductor for the Salina Symphony Orchestra this week, and also a finalist in their search for a brand new music director. He is here in town in Salina, rehearsing with the symphony. Hello, Yaniv. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on the show.
So my first question is, I know you probably have not been in town all that long, but what are your impressions of Kansas?
So I got in actually last week, and we had 2 rehearsals last week, and tonight is our 3rd rehearsal. And so I have experienced the sunshine, the big sky, and also the cold that we do have out in the Midwest, all in 1 week.
Well, but you live in Michigan.
But I live in Michigan.
For you, cold in Michigan, I think, would probably be a bit more extreme than cold in Kansas.
It can be, yes. We have all sorts of weather in Ann Arbor. But I have also been here enough to kind of appreciate that there is a real vibrant downtown scene here in Celina, and the restaurants are busy, and there's a nice selection of places to go. So not knowing what to expect, I've been pretty much blown away by the kind of, vivid culture and people here.
Did you pick the program for the Salina Symphony's concert?
Yeah, I selected a couple. The process involves suggesting some pieces and then having a discussion with the leadership to figure out what is best with the season and what are pieces that I would like to do. So, for example, on this program, the Fifth Symphony of Sibelius is absolutely one of my favorites, and it's kind of one of these masterworks. So
I agree. I'm nodding my head. People can't see me, but I'm nodding my head. I have to say the finale of the Fifth Symphony of Sibelius's Fifth is my favorite 10 minutes ever.
I would add that the finale of the first movement, how it wraps up, is already kind of a preview of how magnificent the last movement becomes. The last movement is famous for these soaring swan songs, because that was actually the inspiration for the whole symphony, was when Sibelius experienced, 16 swans flying over in a V formation, and that, the squawking swans turned into absolutely gorgeous symphonic music. And it's a piece that actually I think the musicians here, pretty much none of them has played it. So I don't think they quite realized how it envelops you until we had our first reading. And I can see them, getting on board with this amazing sound.
Oh, and the whole concert has this concept of taking flight, of uplifting and inspiring. What else is on the program?
So on the first half, we open up with kind of a Raise the Roof Slavonic dance by Antonin Dvořák, which is basically like a party piece. And so we say, hey, we're here to have a good time. And then we have a symphonic poem by a young American composer. Her name is Polina Nazaikinskaya. She's born in Russia and emigrated to the United States. And her piece is called Phoenix. And so this is, of course, about the legend of the Phoenix. And similar, I think, to how Sibelius makes, the sound of soaring, she really does that in her piece. It's like one continuous melody for long stretches of time. It's pretty remarkable. And then we have this, absolute known masterpiece in Haydn's Cello Concerto in C, his first cello concerto. And that is, the definition of elegance and grace for concerto, but also for the cello. And a lot of it is in the upper register. So again, this kind of singing register of the instrument. And we have an amazing guest artist. Her name is Hannah Collins, and she's actually the cello professor at Lawrence. So she is coming from not too far away.
The Salina Symphony Orchestra is January the 30th at 4:00. The program is titled Take Flight. We are speaking with guest conductor Yaniv Segal, and we will continue to in just a moment. But first, let's hear a little bit of this Haydn Cello Concerto No. 1 in C major. We'll listen to a few minutes of the finale and be right back. Haydn's Cello Concerto #1, just a few minutes of the finale there. And that's a piece that you will hear this weekend with the Salina Symphony Orchestra. Guest artist Hannah Collins joins guest conductor Yaniv Segal from Michigan. You currently live in Michigan, but tell us a bit about where all you have lived and the life as a conductor.
Sure. So actually, I'm born in New York City to a musical family. My father is a violin maker and has a shop that's still.
I'm sorry, I gasped. That is so romantic sounding.
Well, it gets more romantic because my mother is a violinist that plays on a violin he made. And I actually grew up as a violinist and violist, and my instruments were made by my grandfather, so my dad's dad. And my mother retired almost 10 years ago from the New York Philharmonic, where she was just the 6th woman to receive tenure in that storied ensemble. So I grew up going to the New York Philharmonic all the time. And then I played violin as a young kid and got into other sorts of performance. So I sang at the Metropolitan Opera in the children's chorus. I actually went on tour, on the first national tour of The Secret Garden as a singer and actor, and was in a Tom Stoppard play in Lincoln Center after I finished that. So my childhood is full of basically being on stage nonstop, either as a violinist, a singer, an actor. And eventually, your voice changes and you don't sing so well. And I kept going with music and got more and more drawn into conducting and composition. And after college, I ended up living in New York, and I started an orchestra called the Chelsea Symphony, which provided opportunities for young conductors, composers, and soloists to be featured as the artists while they also played in the ensemble. And from there, continued working as a musician, piecing together a life, and ended up going to the University of Michigan to do my graduate degrees in conducting and composition. And that now became home as my wife moved out there to do her residency and postdoc and fellowship. So she's faculty at U of M. And
what's her specialty?
She is a neuroscientist and an endocrinologist. So she both sees patients and also runs a lab.
Growing up, you had no choice, it sounds like, to be involved in the arts. I mean, I think that if you're so deeply entrenched in it, like every aspect of your life, it sounds like, revolved around the beauty of music and art, instrument making, singing, performing. Did you always want to be a vocalist? And was it a no-brainer to make the transition from being a vocalist to an instrumentalist and a conductor? Was there a period of mourning for that?
So, well, first of all, I did start playing violin at age 4. So I was always doing that as well. And I also, as a kid, you dabble. And so I started writing music also very early, nothing to the level that, nothing to perform, but just, it was something I had those creative juices flowing to create things in addition to performing. And I don't think that I've lost my singing voice. I mean, I don't sing, but it's just moved to being expressed through the palette of the orchestra. So I feel like that's actually not an unusual transition for me, because it feels like I'm still out
You're
there.
Surrounded by music.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
And there are times, when in a rehearsal, when you would like something to go a different way, and you could spend, I don't know, a couple paragraphs describing it, or you could just sing it. And then the musicians immediately know exactly what you would like. Sibelius has a quote about this, actually, that, music is for when you run out of words. So that's my kind of take on singing and playing an instrument. We're just singing through instruments.
Yes. As an instrumentalist, I think all of our teachers told us, play your instrument as if you were singing.
Yeah.
And vice versa too. You're in a voice lesson and somebody will say, can you sing like a cello?
Well, you have to breathe. And, sometimes, especially with, if you're working with younger students, if you sing it, you will play, most likely you will play more naturally. And the phrasing and the shape of the music makes sense. because also many composers come from a singing tradition and they're thinking of that.
Yeah. Yaniv Segal, we'll talk more with you about the Salina Symphony Orchestra and their upcoming concert. This is the finale that we were talking about earlier, the Sibelius, Jean Sibelius's Fifth Symphony. We'll hear the finale right now and be back to talk more symphony orchestra with conductor Yaniv Segal. The finale of Jean Sibelius's Symphony Number 5. The finale of the Salina Symphony's concert Take Flight, which is January the 30th at 4 o'clock at the Steeple Theater in Salina, Kansas. Features guest artist Hannah Collins, cellist and professor of KU at Lawrence. And I have with me Yaniv Segal, who is the guest conductor of the symphony and also a finalist in their search for a brand new music director. So you have worked with symphony orchestras, professional, student, amateur. Is your experience kind of runs the gamut?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from community orchestras, that's where I met my wife, actually, when I was assistant of a community orchestra in New York, and she was playing flute, to kind of upper level pro ensembles or regional orchestras. I've played in all of these, and I've also worked with all of them.
What's your mission as a conductor, as an artistic soul, a music director? What do you hope to bring to every situation you're in?
I hope that every time we play music, and as a personal goal, I would like it to be, better than the time before, but also that every time we play, perform, listen, we're opening the door for transformation or inspiration, or maybe respite, or something that it's providing something to everybody in the hall. It's providing something to people on the stage. It's providing something to people who may be at the symphony the first time or frequent concert goers. You kind of never know what's somebody else's take is from a performance, but you want it to be a moving experience.
Yeah. What do you think about being a performer during a pandemic and the limitations that you've faced over the past 2 years?
Well, as we talked earlier about being on stage since basically age 8, the longest stretch of time I had not been on stage is during the past 2 years. And that was a very big struggle for me to feel like I had some, all this creative energy that for the first time in my life, I couldn't get out there and do it. Personally, once we figured out the schooling situation for my kids, I went to my studio and started writing more. And so I ended up with a whole bunch of sketches of pieces that I will continue to work on and refine over the next couple of months, but that at least, I didn't come out with nothing, I feel like, and I can remember the first performances back with people and how magical and wonderful it has been to be back on stage with my colleagues and friends and peers, and also the feeling from the audience. A lot of people have been hesitant to come in, but those that are there really want to be there. And so it's a very appreciative feeling on both ends.
The Salina Symphony Orchestra, their concert is January the 30th at 4 o'clock. It is called Take Flight. On the program, you have Slavonic Dance, number 8 from Opus 46, that is by Antonin Dvorak, Haydn's Cello Concerto number 1 in C major, and Jean Sibelius' Symphony number 5 in E flat major, as well as a work by a contemporary composer, a young Polina. Would you pronounce her last name for me?
Sure, Nazaykinskaya.
Polina Nazaykinskaya.
Nazaykinskaya, yes.
Called Phoenix. Obviously, all these pieces have one thing in common, is they inspire us and lift us up so we can take flight with the Salina Symphony this weekend, January the 30th at 4 o'clock. For information on the Salina Symphony, go to their website, salinasymphony.org. It is there that you can get tickets. You can look at their COVID guidelines, their COVID information, their policies that they have currently. And you can read all about Yaniv Segal, who is a finalist for the position of music director and is guest conducting this weekend. Yaniv, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you. It's been great.
Enjoy Kansas, enjoy the symphony. And I just know you're going to have one of the most appreciative audiences this weekend.
Sounds good. Thank you.